to the Nordic Sound Channel. As always, I am your host, Jameson Foster, and today we have Norwegian musician with us, Anette Aga, who put out an album in 2021 that I immediately fell in love with. Every time I listen to it, it's like opening up a fairy tale book that's a little dusty and covered in leather and all that. So I'm really excited to learn more about the background on the album today and about Anette as a musician. Anette, would you like to say hi to everyone?
Hello.
So Anette is a musician who I learned about through Kjell Broughton. He mentioned you while I had him on, and I went and I looked up your name and I saw the album cover. And you are the visual artist too, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, and the art drew me in, and then I listened to it, and it was just such a wonderful
Yes.
experience. Yes, it worked exactly how you wanted it to. Yeah, I listened to it a few times in a row the very first day that I found it, and me and my wife fell in love with this album. So, Anetza, do you want to tell us a little bit about your background as a musician before we start talking about the recent work that you've been doing? I guess a better question I would like to start with is, were you a musician first and then an artist, or were you an artist and then a musician, or were they sort of both at the same time?
Trick question. I don't. Well, okay. Good question. I'm from a very like musical oriented family.
Okay.
So we grew up and my sisters we were singing a lot together, and all of my siblings play instruments and stuff like that. So it was like always music related activities that I went to when I grew up. And then I went to university, and I kind of had to choose between art and music. And my dad, he was like, it's a lot easier to get a job if you do design work. And I was like, you're right. So so I took a master's degree in illustration, which is not design really, but it's close. But at the same time, I kind of I played in bands, and I tried to kind of figure out what I want to do musically. So I kind of did everything parallel, and then yeah, I don't know. I just ended up doing both, I guess.
Okay.
But it's funny now because on my diploma it says that I'm a graphic designer slash illustrator, but I have a lot more work what's it called? Well, the word work experience when it comes to music. So I don't really know what to call it.
I would say that work experience. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You said you were in bands. What were you playing? Like, what instrument were you playing in these bands, or were you a singer?
It's always been vocal first.
Okay.
Yeah, singing. And so I tried a heavy metal band like for a month, and I didn't like it. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're allowed to not like whatever you don't like. Don't you worry about that. Don't apologize for anything. What sorts of bands then? Like, what sorts of bands did you enjoy playing with?
Oh, I did a jazz band for a year, and we had like really tight. Yeah, and it was really fun, but it was also limiting because they had a different vision than I had. And then I started at the same time I kind of went to these Viking festivals, which I'm sure Chell has mentioned a couple of times.
Yep.
And yeah, and the kind of the if you want to go like start doing musical stuff in the Viking in the Viking scene, the threshold is very low. You can just start around the campfire and sing, and then you can sort of build it from there. So I had like two friends, so we started doing that, and we started a group which is called Folklore. And I did that for 5 years. So we went around and we played and we collected like stories and songs, and it was super fun. And yeah, and so when we kind of went separate ways, I kind of could continue a little bit on that. Yeah. So I don't know. That's my band background.
All right.
If you could say that. Yeah, and then I've done like solo stuff for 3 years now. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So as an artist, do you primarily like illustrate? Like what is it that you usually do like outside of the album covers? Like what sort of art do you enjoy doing? My wife is a huge artist. She doesn't do it publicly or sell it or anything, but all of the art that like covers my apartment is by her. So like I know that like artists are pretty eclectic where they'll just pick something up and do it and then do something else a month later. So I was just curious, like what sort of illustration and art do you like doing, or what is that process like for you?
Mm, I usually I just like it's a kind of a meditation kind of state I go
Mm-hmm.
into, and of course when I studied this, it was more like, oh, you can do this and you can get a job and, blah, 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 and stuff like that. But so I had to kind of think a little bit about that then. But nowadays I'm kind of doing it for me more. And I've tried to do some exhibitions and stuff like that. I don't really like that format that much, so I'm gonna try to do something else. But yeah,
Yeah.
I don't like to show it off. It's like, look at this thing that I
Yeah.
made, please judge or whatever. I don't know. It's like,
I get that. I get that. Yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah, so it's mostly like uh, drawings like of mythological themes and animals and
Mhm.
creatures and stuff. And I had a I had a period last year where I just drew birds, and I kind of want to I kind of want to like do it like that they were
Yes.
realistic looking, because I hadn't done that before. So I went to this like, okay, I have to look like proper birds, like, and I went crazy on that, and now I'm tired of that, so I want to do something else.
Oh no.
So it's like it's really weird. And like around Christmas, I started painting on wood. Behold, I have it here.
Whoa.
So I did like
That
this.
is
Whoa.
that is so cool. Look at that.
So I haven't like I'm trying to I've been painting on like what's it called? Canvas
Mhm.
for like years and years and years, and it's so boring. So I want to do something else. You can't like you it's like having, because they have like different properties. Paper has like if you have paper that's really like, it kind of, yeah, sucks in the water,
Mhm.
then you have to kind of deal with that. And
Mhm.
canvas it's a weird surface. Don't like it.
Yeah.
Don't like it at all.
Now I want to rewind a bit. Are you aware that you were talking to like one of the biggest bird dorks like probably on the internet that doesn't actually do bird content? Like I am a huge fan of birds. My wife and I like
Really?
my podcast listeners, YouTube audience, they know like me and my wife used to do a bird watching podcast. We just lost the time for it, and like we have a parrot. Like we love this is like a wood burning art of a bird nest back here. So like I when you said that you used to do birds, I'm now sitting here thinking like I need to see this art that you did of birds. Did you have a like what sorts did you have a favorite bird that you liked trying to capture in your art?
It was like have you seen those little we call it blåmeis, which is like a tiny bird, and it's like blue and yellow sometimes, and it one of those
Okay.
it's one of those birds that comes like outside your window, and it wants to have
All right.
like breadcrumbs and stuff like that. Yeah. I had one that got lost in here, like in my apartment, at one point. So I got a really close look at it. So I was like, "Ooh, this is really fascinating."
Oh, that is awesome. I when I
So
was
I love those.
yeah, I remember my first time in Norway. I saw so many cool birds that I loved. There were these little it's funny, all of a sudden this is going to turn into a bird podcast. The
That's fine.
I fell in love with these little birds that were right on the water. That would like flick their
Yeah.
tails around whenever they were happy. They would like wag their tails like dogs. And they would hang out like on the beach and stuff. And then the other one is there you guys had like these really big pigeon type things that would just hang out in the trees and dive bomb people. And I felt like I was the weird guy at Midgardsblot. I was running around like, hey, do you know what kind of bird that is? And everyone was like, I call it an asshole. So it was just really so I was like, Jameson, you're probably not going to find out what bird that is here. But anyway, I just need to take that quick segue that I'm absolutely going to try to ask you for some of those bird illustrations later. Uh, you got me all off on a bird tangent. So if we can bring it back to you and the art and music that you do, um, I want to know what sort of led up to you deciding to do a solo album, because that seems like a, I've talked to a lot of musicians where solo albums can are simultaneously the most liberating, one of the most liberating experiences, but also the most intimidating. So it's quite a decision to do a solo album, and so I'm really curious as to like what led up to your decision. Like, I'm gonna do this.
Oh, wha- uh, uh, I don't, oh well, I don't know. I don't know. I guess I wanted to like you said, I wanted to kind of make something that I felt that was kind of my baby, or like it was, when you've been in a band for a long time, you kind of have to compromise. This sounds really bad.
No, no,
I don't
no.
like to
No,
compromise.
when I had Nana Barslev on last month, she said the same thing. So you're
Mm.
not. So again, you don't have to apologize for anything. A lot of people feel the same way you do. So just say it. Yeah.
Yeah, which is, collaborating with people is important and it's fun, but when it comes to like creatively what you do, and maybe I'm a little bit like obsessed with the creative process, so it is important that you feel like the whole product is sort of that you've gone through it a bunch of times, and you're
Mhm.
like, okay, I can stand for this, yeah. I wanted to make something, and I wanted to finish it because I'm very bad at finishing stuff, so that was also a motivation.
You are in good company. I do the same thing. I'm really good
Oh,
at
really?
starting. I'm really good at starting projects. Finishing them is a
Yeah,
whole other
that's easy.
story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's oh, yeah, but another reason why I wanted to do like this album specifically was because my grandmother, she released a memoir
Mhm.
2 years before that, and I was very much inspired by her, like the stories in the book and everything, and so I was like, oh, I would like to make something that kind of echoes that book
Mhm.
in a way. So the whole CD is basically kind of like um, here is the CD, and also this book is here. That's like,
Yeah. No,
yeah,
I'm really glad you brought that up, because I was really curious when I was reading about the album. In your Bandcamp, you named the memoir in the book, and I searched it thinking it was just some sort of well-known Norwegian book or something like that, and nothing came up. So I was like, well, good thing I'm having her on, because I want to know more about this story that inspired this album about Huldra and water spirits and everything like that. Um, so yeah, so I guess that's a great segue into the actual album. So your grandmother wrote this memoir. And what was it? What was
yeah.
it titled?
I have you here. Hold on. Oh, don't fall out of the chair. Okay, here we go. So this is her. Oh,
Okay. Oh.
yeah. And this is called Fra Skyggestrand til Espeland, which is from, okay, so there is two place names here,
Mhm,
Skyggestrand and Espeland. So
mhm.
this is basically from Skyggestrand, which is shadow, I think beach
Mhm.
is the word, but it's not like a sandy beach, it's a rocky beach.
Yep.
Till Aspeland, and Aspeland is the place where so it's like from the place where she was born until the place she moved when she got married and all that
Okay.
stuff. Yeah. So yeah. And Aspeland is also, sorry, I'm rambling now.
No, no, you're fine.
Aspeland is also Aspeland is also the name of the place where my family is settled now.
Okay.
And both of these place names kind of, they have like this mythical quality. So
Mhm.
Skyggestrand is like Shadow Beach, and Aspeland is like osp. Osp is the trees that does, they have like leaves that does like this. Have you
Okay.
seen?
Yeah.
So Ospeland is like the land of osps. The
Okay.
I don't really know the English name for that. It's a tree that does this.
we have the trees that do this here in the States, but I don't know what what the
Yeah,
Norwegian
yeah.
equivalent would be.
They make like a shh sound. It's really awesome. I want one
Do you?
outside my house when I get rich.
Quaking aspens. Does Norway have quaking aspens? That's what they are in English, and it's a anyway.
Quake.
It's a quaking aspen. That's actually what I'm in Colorado, and that's sort of Colorado's signature tree is the quaking aspen, where it turns gold in the autumn, and when
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, and when the
yeah,
wind blows
yep.
through, it's just this eerie ghost sound. I had no idea you guys had aspens like that in Norway. So I know exactly what you're talking about. They are everywhere here.
Yay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, they're one of the
Yeah,
biggest tourist attractions to the Rocky Mountains in the fall. People travel from all over to see just hills of gold. Um, so I know,
yeah.
yeah, so
Because
I
they,
know exactly what you're talking about.
yay, okay. So yeah, and in the place where I grew up, there's like a bunch of these trees.
Mhm,
Like they're kind of on the standing like overhead, sort of
mhm,
in a yeah. So that place, Aspeland, is where I grew up, which is also part of the title for the book.
mhm,
And then I decided to call my album, which is quite long, Skyggestrand Nøkkevatn, which
mhm,
is Skyggestrand is the place where my grandmother grew up,
mhm.
Shadow Beach, and then Nøkkevatn is like Nix water.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
so you have
yeah,
Shadow
just the
Beach,
little
Nix
water
water.
spirit.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think just the
yeah, yeah,
easiest way to translate it to English is just those sort of water spirits. It's just like a general
yeah.
term. So it's like, that title alone, I do read Norwegian. I'm not as good at speaking it. But I read the title of the album and I was like, well, this is gonna be awesome. So
You don't you don't
yeah,
think it's too long? I feel it's a little bit too
no.
long, maybe.
No, I mean, but then at the
No,
same
okay.
time, I'm a huge metalhead, so I'm used to these albums that have like essays for their title. So I never thought it was
Yeah.
too long.
Oh, that's good though.
Yeah,
That's good.
I think it's just enough. It captures the imagination. Like if you understand the words, like
Mm.
the second I see like Skyggestrand Nøkkevatn, I'm just like, ooh, spirit waters. I
Yeah.
want to hear more about this. Uh, yeah, so I'm curious about the memoir itself, because throughout the album, there's definitely this theme of supernatural spirits, mythology, folklore. In the memoir, is that a huge part of the memoir too, or is that something that you added to it creatively to give it a bit of like a, I don't know, like a magical twist? I was curious if that's in
Um,
the actual memoir.
it's not in the actual memoir.
Okay.
It's but there are like the first song and the last song. It's the first song is more about the place in itself and like how it makes you feel, and the
Mm-hmm.
last song is about a funeral,
Mm-hmm.
and the funeral is very much inspired by a funeral that's in the book.
Okay.
So it's like the whole vibe is, I'm kind of trying for a similar vibe, but the supernatural element, that's very much my interpretation of it,
Awesome.
because it's my grandmother and she has told me stuff.
Yeah.
So, so there is two stories that's been reoccurring in my childhood, which both my grandmother and my mother told me, and they were like, okay, this story is coming from that farm that she grew up
Mhm.
on, and so I have both those stories in song form on the
Cool.
album, and the first one is Hulra, which is what's it called? Do you guys have a name for
we
Hulra? No.
we we don't, we just call it a huldra. And
Oh, okay.
actually I would love to pick your brain about what that is, because here in the States, when we
Oh,
well,
you have asked the right person. I can
hell
talk
yeah.
about this
All
forever.
right, because so here's the thing, and this is why I'm sort of scared to ask this question, because I
Mhm.
love what I think the huldra is, but everything that I think the huldra is came from either immigrants from Norway to here and sort of like sharing the story, but then also through primarily like German, like 19th century Germans who were like collecting these stories and putting them in books. So anyway, what I know the Huldra to be is, and I really, please do not hesitate to tell me how wrong this might be, because I'm ready to have this idea broken now that I can ask someone. It's a girl with a cow tail, right? Does she sort of
Mhm.
have like a cow tail?
in the Norwegian version, she has a cow tail and she has a hole in her back.
What?
In the Swedish,
That's new.
yes. in the Swedish version, she has a foxtail.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
The hole in her back, and this was part of the story that I was told. So I think maybe it's kind of something you don't really learn unless you're kind of told the story as a child, because it's kind of more sinister.
Yeah, as folktales are.
Yeah, because she's very beautiful and appealing, like if she looks at you, but if she turns around you can see the tail and you're like, oh no, something is wrong. But you can also see her back, and she's hollow like a tree trunk, so you can see like through her, kind of. Yeah, or not through her, but you can see that she doesn't have like any inside. Yeah. So yeah.
Whoa,
So
that is cool.
She's a mean spirit. She wants to lure people into the mountains so they can. I would like to think that they eat them, but I don't know.
Okay, so so the version that I've been told, which actually makes her very sympathetic and sort of like a very sad story, is that up on the Sæters that you guys have in Norway, the summer cabins where the herd girls would take the cows and goats up into the mountains. But, sometimes they would have, campfires where they would invite people up to dance and all that to sort of help with the loneliness. And Huldras would always try and join in on the dancing because they were lonely, right? And then they would join in until someone noticed their tail, and then they were shooed away. And so the story of the Huldra that I've been told is it's sort of like this mountain spirit that all it wants to do is like join in and like have friends and dance and sing and play music, but it can only ever do it for a short amount of time until someone sees its tail, and then they all sort of like kick her out because she's a monster. I don't know like where that came from, because every time I try and search it, it doesn't come up. But I learned it while doing research for some of the work I was doing on Edvard Grieg, because he wrote some songs that have Huldra-like figures in it. But I don't know how accurate that is to like Norwegian folklore. But that's the story that I know of it, and that's the one that always captures me. But I love this hollowed out tree log type deal too, like the very sinister. That's awesome.
I think it could be with her being like a sad person and everything. It's funny though, if I'm going to go into semantics.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Huldra is kind of like belong to the troll family. And I had a brief discussion with Kjell about this actually. The word troll, originally it kind of meant something that we don't understand, like something strange and everything. So it could be like, according to that, it could be that Huldra also is kind of like a lonely person, because we had a tendency of assigning the name troll to things we didn't really understand what was, or fairy or whatever, but troll also. And then it kind of developed into this kind of okay, this is a species now, later.
Yeah.
Trolls, they look like this, but that was not the original way the word was used. So it's not wrong what you're saying with her being a sad creature.
Well, that's good, because I was really scared that you were gonna be like, you just made that up, and I was gonna be like, fine, but I still love it. But no, I'm glad that it's at least a little accurate. Because that's sort of what it's like being an American that's like really interested in foreign folklores, is you never really know if what you're reading is true. Or how it came to you in that way. So I always like to ask, and so I'm glad that wasn't as painful for me as I thought it was going to be. So with the Huldra, what other sort of folklore creatures sort of like pop up in this album? Are there any in particular that sort of like caught your imagination, like the Huldra? Or I'd love to hear more about that.
Okay, well, you have the Nyx though, which is also this is the water spirit. It's not really, it doesn't really appear like physically, but on the farm that my grandmother grew up, there was like and I usually tell this story before I sing the song.
Awesome, please, yes, please tell the story. Yeah.
It's like, okay, so they had a house, and then there was next to the house there was a hole in the ground, so kind of like a well, and it was a slope, and then it was like moss and everything, and there was a water, like a bunch of water, like
Mhm,
a tiny waterfall going
okay.
into this little hole.
Mhm,
And the hole, like the water in the hole was pitch black
mhm.
because it was like dirt and everything down there. And my grandmother and the kids on the farm, they were told that do not lean over, uh, um, because if you do, the Knicks will come and grab you. And and I love this. They have like all of these stories, and some of the reason why they have these also is to protect the kids, right?
Mhm,
They're living in this extremely dangerous environment with mountains and
mhm.
slopes and everything, and instead of just telling them to stay away from that, they're like, okay, if you go over there you'll get eaten by a troll. So yeah.
Oh,
So it
beautiful.
had like mythology. Yeah, mythology had a purpose, like
Mhm.
at some point. um but anyway, this whole though, so I was like very fascinated by this story. So I wrote a song where I kind of added a little bit more to it, where it said that if you just put your hands into the well, the Knicks will come and grab you. So but there is a solution. If you use a bucket and do it the right way, then it will be fine. You know.
Oh my
And
God,
to
that is
kind of,
so great.
it has like oh, if you use your hands then the Knicks come and grab you, but if you use the bucket then you will be safe, or something like that. But it rhymes, it rhymes in Norwegian.
Awesome.
um and kind of to set up this, because it's just a hole, you know, in the, you know, to set it up and make it more interesting, I kind of gave it like a backstory where in the beginning of the song I'm like, this is magical water. It comes from on top of the mountain. There is a magical like lake, and that's where the water is coming from. And that's actually where the Nix is living. This is dangerous. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is so great. It's just like as I said at the beginning, like at the beginning of the recording, is like every time I listen to this album, I really feel like I'm opening up like this leather-bound tome of all these fairy tales. And you really captured that spirit where I really feel like, I don't know, like I'm opening up The Hobbit again or something like that, where I'm about to read something that's gonna like take me on an adventure. And I can definitely tell that like this love that you have for this folklore like absolutely shines through this album. Um, so if these stories, so you have these stories that are influencing it. You have your grandmother too. Where does the art come into it? Because like I can tell you put a lot of love into that album cover. Like that is, it's one of those album covers where like the longer you look at it, the more you see and the more you notice. Um, and that's sort of like a sign that the artist had a lot of love and time put into it. So I was curious just how art comes into this album, um, if at all, or if it's just the album cover is very pretty.
Yeah, well, it has a, has the backstory too. I'm trying not to be like too obvious with the album covers, because it is
Mhm.
important that people actually can interpret a little bit, but
Oh yeah.
but also at the same time, you know, it have to fit somehow.
Mhm.
But that one album cover is I think I have it here also. No, I'm lying. It's I just tied it.
No,
I
you're
don't know
fine.
where
You're
things go.
fine. Don't you worry about it. People can look it up. It's
Okay,
fine. Yeah, and they should look it
okay,
up.
okay. Well, okay. Well, you have like these do you have these in America? These worm grass, we call them. Uh oh, ferns.
Oh
Ferns.
yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah. Everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we yeah, I grew up with these, and I
Mhm.
really, I think they're so pretty. And on the farm that my grandmother used to live on, there was also a bunch of these.
Mhm.
So and I think maybe this is like a very nostalgic plant for me, especially because it's like it's you can hide in it, and it really, it looks like a feather, and it's
Yep.
awesome. Yep. but the bird, I kind of changed that a couple of times. So you have the ferns, and you have
Mhm,
like something that looks like a well, because it goes like down, down,
mhm,
down, you know.
mhm.
And then you have the bird in the middle, and I kind of wanted it to feel like you were sort of looking into a well, and there was like something tiny in the middle. And also, my mother, she told me a story that didn't make it into the album that I wanted to make a song about, but I didn't
Well, it's not too late.
manage.
It'll pop up eventually.
Yeah, but I'm gonna try to be a little bit short about this one. But
Mhm,
she told me that when she was small, they had like a bunch of bushes that they
mhm,
used to play in, and this was also on this farm,
mhm.
a bunch of like berry bushes. So you can kind of uh crawl into, and you make these like caves and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But because it was berry bushes, and it was so tied together, when you got into this thing, there were like dead birds inside.
Oh
Like
man.
bird corpses. I know, right? The visuals. Oh, so I really, really wanted to make a song about that, but I couldn't. Like, you have to have some kind of narrative,
Mhm.
like, you know.
Yep.
So it's a great idea. So it kind of ended up in the album cover.
That
So
is
that's,
that's so
yeah.
great. Yeah. Wow, that is awesome. Um, I was curious, because I'm actually not really one to like look up lyrics unless an artist like tells me you should look at the lyrics. Because I've always found that like it's more important what's being sung, not what's being said. So the reason I'm saying this is because I want to ask, does Fossegrim come up in this album, or is he counted as a Nyx?
No, Fossegrim is a different creature, actually. He
Is he a
lives
troll?
kind of. I
Kind
don't
of.
I don't really know. I don't know that much about him in particular. The Nixes are kind of forest
Okay.
oriented. So they like living in the mountains
Mhm.
and in the lakes and in the forest, and yeah. And they're kind of very um I don't know, geographically bound to their water space.
Mhm.
Foster man, I think he's more ocean oriented, at least as far as I know. And he look according to Kittelsen, at least, he has
Mhm.
like this mouth. Like it's like so yeah.
Yeah,
So
I don't. Mhm.
I have to admit, I don't know that much about him, but I believe that he is a different creature
Okay,
than the Nick.
cool. Yeah, yeah. Because I just read a lot about him because my master's thesis was on Hardanger fiddling, and
Woohoo.
he's a huge part of the folklore of how someone learns how to play the Hardanger fiddle. It's actually this really funny story of you have to float a goat down a river on Thursday, if you want to learn how to play the Hardanger fiddle, and if the goat
Wait,
is oh
wait.
what
I have to write this down. This
oh
is
okay.
quite awesome. Hold on.
No, trust me, this is really awesome. If you actually go to Bergen, you will see you'll see the memorial, the monument to Alabul, the violin
Yeah,
player.
yeah,
It's him and Fossegrim playing the harp.
yeah,
And the story is,
yeah.
if you want to learn how to play the Hardanger fiddle, you have to sacrifice a goat down a river on Thursday.
Right.
Um, and
Sacrifice goat Thursday. Okay.
and if it's plump enough, if the goat is sufficiently meaty, Fossegrim will teach you how to play. But if the goat is not plump enough, Fossegrim will only teach you how to tune the instrument. So if someone is bad at the Hardanger fiddle, uh, it's because their goat wasn't plump enough. And that used to be like a phrase for how you would refer to a bad Hardanger fiddle player. You would say like, "Oh, his goat isn't plump enough." Uh, but it's just a really funny like little story of to like how in some communities how Hardanger fiddlers actually learned how to play. Um, but anyway, I was just wondering if he came up because I love that guy. That guy is funny. Like, I'll teach you how to
I'm
play,
I'm
but you got to
gonna
give me a goat.
I'm gonna read up on him now. This is great. This is gold. Yep, yep.
Awesome. Yeah, if you look up just the story of his name was Millerguten. It was like he was like one of the earliest Hardanger fiddlers in the 19th century that revived the tradition, along with Alibul. Um, it, Fossegrim is part of both of their backstories from like a folklore perspective. Um, but anyway, yeah, definitely look more into that guy because he's my favorite just because I had to read so much about him.
This could make a really great song. Can I steal? Or
Yeah, that's not my. I didn't come up with that. That I know for a fact that that
no,
is Norwegian folklore.
I
Yeah.
know. But, yeah, but you know, you mentioned it. So
Oh no, please! I would love it if you did a song about that. Considering how much I love the other music you've done, if you can give Fossegrim justice through your music, I would consider that a job well done on my part. So,
okay.
yeah, is there before we move on, because I do want to talk about Silva song. Um,
Hmm.
is there anything else that you wanted to talk about Skyggestrand Nøkkevatn, or do we sort of like cover everything? I just want to make sure that like you've said everything that you want to, maybe enough to entice people to listen to it, because I'll do my part on that side. I just want to make sure that you said everything that you wanted to say about that album.
Oh, wow. I don't know.
That's fine. We'll move on to Silva Song. Oh, actually, no. I had something else I wanted to ask about. What was it like working with
Yeah, yeah.
Shel Broughton?
Oh, he's such a nice guy. Seriously, that doesn't sound good. He's amazing to work with.
Oh yeah.
He's very patient, and he has so much knowledge on what he's doing. And I don't think I was kind of in a oh okay, I'm gonna try to be short. I'm sorry.
You don't have
I was
to be short. I want you to say what you want to say. So don't worry about
okay,
time.
I'm gonna
Oh,
okay, okay. Well, but I've got my mind's gonna go like this.
yeah,
But
right. We're both the
okay,
same that
I'll
way.
try. Okay, for both of our sakes, I will try to keep it short.
Okay.
Yeah, when I wanted to record this album or this EP, I had a deal with a record company, and they didn't deliver on their part. And they were kind of new, and I knew one of them, and it was sort of like, it was not really like a friend deal or anything, but they didn't do what they were supposed to do. And thank God that I didn't sign any papers or anything, so I just withdrew the whole project. And then a friend of mine mentioned Chal, and we've known of each other for years, but we haven't really spoken that much. And so I was like, okay, I'll try that. And so I got in contact with him, and he told me that he actually had wanted to collaborate for a while. And yeah, it just went really great. And I'm very, very grateful that he actually did the production as well, because it's like the sound, like sitting and like playing the cantata, which is it's a very like the sound is really low,
Mhm.
and you're doing the vocal thing, and it's like it's okay, but it's not like it has to have something more if you got to put
Mhm.
it on an album.
Yep.
And Chell is just the soundscapes and the birds singing, and he's yeah, he did a great job. I'm so
Yeah.
grateful for him. Yes.
We all are. I was actually curious, like how much of the album like did he work on? Was he primarily like the production side, like you gave him the music and he sort of made it pop, or like did he play any instruments, or was it pretty much you did the? That's funny, I'm doing what you said you were going to do, or I'm getting distracted by my own question. I'm just curious, like what part of the album did he do? Like what was that collaboration like?
Well, well, he we first we recorded like the songs just um what's it called, just the vocals and the cantata, and then he came with some suggestions regarding, like he has like what's it called, organistrum,
Oh
the
yeah, yeah, his big his
yeah.
prized possession, that
Oh
giant
no,
instrument.
oh no, oh no, or
No.
maybe it is that one. I don't know. Oh, maybe. He had that one in the background of one of the songs, and then there were some flutes in there that he also played. So he has contributed like with instruments
Okay.
on some of the songs, on all of them except Kafad, I think, which
Mhm.
is the last one. because then I had a violinist to play some of the parts. Yeah, so he has played a lot on it, I would say.
Okay.
It's quite subtle. It's quite subtle some places, but yeah.
Well, that's sort of what he's good at, is like that subtle addition that you would notice only if it was gone. That's sort of, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I just wanted to hear more about what he did with the album too, because I know that he was a part of it. I just didn't know to what extent. So yeah, cool. Thanks for telling me more about that, because I love the music he does. I'm always curious about what he's up to, and again, that's how I learned about you, was through him. So yeah. Anyway, thanks so much for telling us about this album. I really hope people take the time to listen to Skyggestrand Nøkkevatn, because it is absolutely an experience, and I really mean it when I say that listening to it sort of like reminded me of my first time opening up The Hobbit or something like that, where I was like, ooh, this is like just enchanting front to back. So
that's the greatest compliment I've heard today.
All right, cool, awesome. Well, okay, well, I mean it. So but before we wrap up, I really want to hear about Song, because I've listened to that song so many times since you put it on, since you released it. I told Shell that I'm assuming you did the artwork, right?
Yeah.
It really seems like, and I want to ask, are you familiar with Ori and the Blind Forest? It's a video game.
Yes.
Was that a direct influence on that? Because that really reminded me a lot of that game. I want to know if that's coincidence or if that was like.
It's I don't think I've sat down and like thought, okay, I'm gonna make something that looks like Ori and the Blind Forest.
Okay.
But I do love that artwork, and I love the music. And I'm kind of like a gamer, so I get like, yeah, on the
me too,
games
100%. Yeah.
Yay! Yeah, it's yeah. So I love Ori and the Blind Forest. I have kind of like, the gameplay is a little bit I don't know. I had to stop midway, like, because of the gameplay. But I'm gonna watch all of the walkthroughs.
This is funny as hell. We have the same exact experience. Artwork is beautiful, story is beautiful, music is beautiful. Yes. Didn't finish it.
Yeah,
that's funny.
But I'm gonna watch someone else finish it on YouTube. I think, yeah. You don't have to finish the game. You can be a super fan anyway. So.
Oh yes, so the background to Song, I would love to hear about like what sort of inspired this track. Be it a certain maybe artistic idea you had, or was there a certain story behind it? Because this thing, when I say this, I mean it in a really good way. This put me to sleep a few times, where I like woke up after Spotify would like put on the next song, and I'm like, where am I? So I would love to hear more about this song, because it's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, so I have my partner has 2 kids. Yeah. And like, I don't know, 2 years ago I got really involved in their bedtime routine. Because as an extra parent, you have to kind of it's a weird, yeah, anyways.
Yeah.
You kind of have to figure out how much you're gonna, and it was really fun, because they're like really playful kids, and they wanted to like sing and play and blah blah blah, and it didn't want to go to sleep. And so we had like these especially the youngest one, she kind of liked to make up stories and stuff like that. And so I wanted to have something that we could like sing together that would be easy to remember. And so I kind of made this song, and then I kind of sang it for them, and then they kind of helped me edit it a little bit.
Awesome.
And it's quite funny, because when I have after it was kind of finished, I still kind of sang it for them. They changed the lyrics, like they still kept on changing the lyrics just for fun, and then So there is like in the last verse there is something about oh, I just have to think translation in my
Mhm.
head. There is yeah there is the dog is we have like a cat and a dog, and the
Okay.
dog is really social and the cat just hates everybody.
Yep.
So so the dog is like it in the song the dog something like the dog is sleeping at your foot but and the cat is sleeping under the chair or something like that, and they like every time we sang that they changed it. They're like, today dad is under the chair, ha ha ha, because he's also there but he's not there at the moment, ha ha, today the name of kid is under the chair, you know because it's like it's just oh they're so sweet, it's so funny. Yeah, so they got really attached to this song, so it's sort of their song, and
Okay.
we have two versions out, and in the short version their names are in there,
Mhm.
and in the long version I took them out and added something else
Mhm.
because they were like a little bit unsure. One of them wanted to have the names in and the
Mhm.
other one didn't, so I had to
Oh yeah,
kind of
gotcha.
honor their wishes. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. I
So
mean,
yeah,
that makes a lot of sense that that was like made in collaboration for bedtime because that worked, man. Like, I'm in Colorado where
yeah.
where marijuana is legal. I was listening to that and I was high and I was like, okay, this is a good place to be.
This is
Like,
great.
it is wonderful. Yeah, so anyway, just this is very I know it sounds like I'm just like doing nothing but praising and complimenting, but I think that what I'm sort of trying to communicate is I think it's very rare to have a and when I call you a new artist, I know that you've been doing this for a while, but like with an album and everything, it's very rare to have a new artist like have such a defined like style and aesthetic that like really catches you. Usually musicians have to spend a lot of time sort of figuring that out through a lot of albums, a lot of iterations. And it's just really striking to me how much of like a defined musical personality you already have. And like it's just really gripping. Um, and so I'm going to use that as an excuse to ask you, are you in maybe making another album anytime soon, or are you just sort of waiting for the inspiration to hit? Because I'm sitting here like I need more of this stuff. You don't hold out on me.
Oh, I don't know. Well, I have to start over again then. But because I just finished So Song Again. But yeah, I've started to write some new songs, and I kind of want to make something that's a little bit more personal
Mm-hmm.
now, because I know that this is a trend a little bit in the music world at the moment, that you're kind of using music as a healing tool, and
Oh
you
yeah.
yeah, yeah. But I really like this trend though. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, trends can be good, and I think using music for healing and personal fulfillment is a really good trend. More of that, please.
Mm, mm. So I was very, very inspired by Blota,
Mhm. Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that is I've told him
like
that is the CD that is always in my car. Like you turn on the car and
yeah,
that CD
yeah,
plays. Yeah.
yeah. It's oh yeah, and I haven't been able to hear through it because it's very intense. But
Mhm.
the whole idea of just making like this, okay, this is a journey, and you kind of try to figure things out, and you actually using music directly to deal with stuff. I think
Mhm.
that's very very powerful, because
Mhm.
I think maybe this is just me, but I've been using art and music as an escapism more,
Mhm.
and that could be useful, but you're kind of taking the focus away from the problem instead of you know yeah.
I okay. I could talk about this with you forever because this is so interesting to me because like I had the same thing happen where, music used to be the escapism, right? Like I'd put on an album to sort of like go somewhere else. And it wasn't until I went to Migarsblot and I was listening to all of these albums from these musicians all, doing this trend. And we put this negative idea on the word trend, but I'm not here. Like trends happen. It's how people work. So like this trend of maybe just say like this style of making music in a way that's like more active, um is really, at least I think it's very healthy for people in general, because my primary job is an ethnomusicologist. And so like I study how people use music and how music actually functions in culture and stuff like that. And so one of the important things that ethnomusicologists are always concerned with is, you know, in this day and age where music is increasingly becoming this passive thing, where like, you know, you put it on and then you put it on while you're making dinner or something like that, where
Yeah.
music used to be this thing where people came together and made music as a way to fill time or fill space or fulfill yourself. So I think this trend, this style of making music is really significant, and I think you're onto something by pointing out that it's sort of a reaction, or maybe maybe sort of an opposite to people using music to escape somewhere else instead. That's something that I've noticed even with my own music. I used to make escapism music all the time, and now I've been working on this. I play banjo. I've been working on this banjo album that I was really inspired also by Blota. By was and also
Mhm.
Folket Borte for Nordevindens at Liv Uten Ende. I listened to that and I just love this idea. Oh, and Runehild, of course. Listening to all of this music of
Of
people
course.
use, yeah. And I'm sitting here like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
how can I use the banjo to do this? And I sat down, and in like a month, I had like this collection of songs together that was doing just that. And I think it's really good for musicians like us to sort of like have different ways that we can use music, because I think it's really good for the creative process. So I'd be really interested to hear what you do with that whenever you have music to show us, because that would also be very different from using, you know, your grandmother's memoir, right? Like
Yeah.
that's, I'm not going to call that escapism, but you're using someone else's story and it's, you're making it your own, and it's this beautiful artistic project. But I would love to hear you sort of tackle this way of using music for yourself and maybe for others, and sort of like addressing issues. uh
Mhm.
yeah, now I rambled. So see, I told you we
No,
all
no,
do
it's fine.
it.
It's
We all do
yeah,
it.
yeah.
But it's like
But I think
yeah.
that you're first. Sorry.
No, I've talked plenty. Please, you go.
Okay. I will. I would, because I love the whole Nordic folk music
Mhm,
vibe and genre and like the aesthetic of it. I would still make music that sounds like that.
mhm,
Um, even though I like the themes are different and everything.
mhm,
But what I really, really think is super cool about mythology and like when you pick stories that people have some kind of connection to is that
mhm,
you have this story and maybe there's a theme in there, but it says a lot more about the human experience, and then you can kind of have that as a
mhm.
shell, and then you can
Yeah.
kind of insert this is my personal something, you know. So so I think, and again with that, I'm gonna be a little bit nerdy now. I'm sorry. Again with
Please.
the, with this, in my when I did my master's degree, in Nordic ornamentation, actually,
Mhm. Oh, cool.
because that was the kind of the style that I kind of delved into.
Mhm,
Even though I did like illustration and everything, but when I did that, I read a bunch about storytelling from the Viking Age and the Kongesagaen and all of
mhm.
these really old stories. And you know the skald, the storyteller,
Yep.
the way that they construct like text, it's so amazing. It's like
Yep.
layers and layers and layers and layers and layers. And I just love that approach because you can have like this tiny, tiny poem, and then you can have all of this information in there. But you have to kind of rely on the fact that your audience know the references and
Mhm.
everything. So for some people, it's just like a pretty poem,
Yeah.
and for other people, it's like blah, 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 of information.
Yeah.
So I think
Actually,
writing like, sorry, you first.
no. I was just gonna say real quick that like uh, in the spring, like this semester, I teach Norse mythology. I'm a teaching assistant here at CU Boulder, and I teach the recitations, which is where like the students actually get to like, it's not just a lecture. The students get to engage. And they are always blown away. You know, the people who take this class are people who just see Norse mythology and they're just like, sign me up. But I have them read the poems and they have to like look at the kennings and they have to sort of figure out what's going on. And that is always so much fun to me because they have no idea how much is in like a single line. And all of a sudden we've spent like
Yeah.
30 minutes on a single line. And they're like, well, are we going to move on to another line? I'm like, are you done? Like, so anyway, I know exactly what you're talking about. We're just like everything is just so packed with these details and references and all that. It's
Mhm.
what really makes it special. And I've always sort of thought of the art style in the same way, like the knotwork or even the rosamoling that you find on Hardanger fiddles. It's just what I said about your album cover. The longer you look at it, the layers sort of start to show themselves. You just got to know where to look.
Oh, yes, yes. That's great. That's what I want. So, yeah.
I guess to wrap things up here, Anessa, where can people find you if they want to learn more about you, if they want to stay up to date on the music you make, on the art you make? Where can they find you?
I am on Spotify and Bandcamp.
Mhm.
If you want to support me, Bandcamp is the best option.
Yes, as I
Yes,
say at the end of every interview with an artist, please support through Bandcamp or the most direct way possible. It's just
yes,
you the the whole system of getting music to people is becoming increasingly more predatory and like more sneaky with how they can just get as much money away from you as possible. So what I always like to tell people: buy records, buy physical copies if you can. You know, just I hope by now my audience knows, like, if they want to support an artist, if they want to support an artist, Bandcamp, go to the website direct. It's the best way you can do it.
yeah. And also, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and that's more for if you want to look at the illustration stuff. It's music there too,
I mean, the
also. But
illustrations are
yeah,
enough of a selling point. Like, yeah, the art is great. If I haven't sold that point enough yet throughout the last hour or so, please, yeah, check out her art. So Anetta, thank you so much for stopping by the channel. I've loved getting to know more about you. As I said, since the first time I heard that album, I was like, I need to talk to this person. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here and tell us more about yourself, about the creative process behind Skyggestrand Nøkkevatn. It's been a pleasure to have you. Uh, and please don't be a stranger, all right? I'd love to have you on next time you make music, all right?
okay, okay. I would love to. Thank you for having me, though.
Oh,
This was great.
absolutely. It was my pleasure. As I said, love getting to know you a little bit better. Love the music you make. Thank you for everything you do, all right? And stay in touch, okay?
Mhm.
All right, cool. See you later, Anetta.